Okay, so back to the website here. So basically, if you're interested in really getting into the footwear business and you want to learn, basically everything there is to learn, and this is the all access pass, and this course, all the stuff was designed basically to help a $10 billion company that was wanted to train their staff. And a friend of mine worked for this outfit and knew that I had written the books and asked me if I would basically do a training for her and her team. And that's kind of how we got started. We made a course for them, and it was really fun. We got to go to New York and deliver it, and it was really a lot of fun. But basically, that's why it all goes so deep and why there's so many lessons. And it's a 40-hour course. It took us a couple weeks to deliver it. But this thing, if you get involved in the course, you can take it at your own time. So this is where you get the courses. Um, just quickly, if you find the course you want, so here's sustainability strategies. Just right now, it's the intro price of $99. Um, Price will go up, but here it's available to you now for $100. You don't need any discount code or anything like that. And then basically here, this is where the course lives, right? So if you hit enroll now, it'll take you to the purchase page. I'll show you that in a second. But more importantly, if you scroll down here underneath, and then also here along the side, these are all of the course units these are all the lessons that are in the course. And basically each lesson is somewhere between 5 minutes and an hour, right? It's all piece by piece depending on the subject. And also with this course, there's some downloads of some material lists, right? So if you're looking for different vendors for sustainable materials, they're basically in the download for this course. All right, so that's courses. I know some folks here do DIY. That's where if you come over here to books and tools, you can see we have a whole selection of the books that the courses are based on. But also, if you want to, you're hearing feedback. Okay. Okay. Let me look here. I think it's Jacqueline is still, yeah, that's the one. Is something's coming back from her system. So okay, man. Okay. Hey, Mike, how are you? Good to see you, Mike. Okay, so that's all our DIY stuff, and so you know where to find it. Okay, Mike, you still have sound problems, man. Okay, all right. So that's the course's website. If anyone else has any questions, we can go back and I can show you more of that later. But let's move on to sustainability. So um, all right, it was hidden down here. Okay, let's show our sidebar here. Okay, 1 second here. Okay, can you hear me, Mike? No, you can't hear me. Mike, I'm catching you. Okay, you're good. Jacqueline, you're still feeding back. So I'm gonna put you on mute, and then if you want a question, go ahead and type it in. All right. Always something going on here. All right. So here's the deal, folks. Sustainability for footwear is something that this is a sort of a question that's come in too. There are no rules right now, right? Nobody is enforcing sustainability requirements. It's still basically they're working on rules, but there's nothing official right now. Of course, we have different chemical requirements, right? If you've heard of California Prop 65, and when you import shoes into the European Union, there's also some chemical regulation, those types of things. But as far as official, like must do sustainable, there really it's not. There's nothing required yet. However, if you're in the business, your customers, whether it's your end users or your dealers or uh, are going to be pushing you to make these improvements. Also, if you're an owner, then you just want to do that because you know it's the right thing to do. Or if you're an employee at a big company, and I've sort of been at all different levels of this, um, it's empowering your staff members to go ahead and to make sustainable choices. And basically, you know, depending on where you are inside of a company, whether you're the boss or the manager or the underling, or the staff member, you have a chance to take part in the sustainability effort here. And I'm gonna scroll down here and I'll just show you quickly what I mean by this. And this is pretty far into the presentation, but it's something that's pretty interesting, and everyone basically has to play their part. So here's our sustainability pyramid here, and you're going to have regulations, right? You're going to have regulations that government's pushing, right? And your customers are going to push you to do things, right? And then if you're the owner, you can push sustainability up or down. If you're an employee or a staff member, then you're going to push your environmental, desire or feeling up into the company. And if you're a manager, then good, you get to execute all these things, because of course, between outside regulation and customer requirement and maybe the owner's requirement, there's a lot of moving parts to organize. But that's sort of understanding, how a company comes to make a sustainable challenge, or meet the challenge. All right, so that's kind of the why part. I mean, we all know why. I mean, I think I've seen, you maybe have seen these photos before. These are photos that I took on the ground in a shoemaking town, and there it was, just shoes piled on the ground. And in this case, it was a showroom that was closed, and they just literally dumped the shoes out onto the street. And it's really funny. If you look closely, you'll see that there's not a pair in the whole pile. There's no pairs. Everything's a half. So just useless. And then this is another one. This actually kind of broke my heart to see this, because a few days before, I was in the factory that was making these shoes, and to be out on a walk, because I would get up and try to get some exercise and go walking around, and to walk through the shoemaking town and to see this cutting waste and these samples and go, wait a minute, this looks familiar. They were making this very shoe in that now, how did it get here? Who knows, right? Did the factory hire the garbage hauler and he just dumped it on the ground? Hey, maybe that's what happened. But yeah, this is not the great part of it. But again, this is actually, when you manufacture shoes, if you don't do it efficiently, this is what you get, right? You get this kind of waste. So that's where sustainability, there's a lot of different ways to tackle it, right? And it's not just about materials. It can be about efficiency, right? If you design a shoe, or you design a manufacturing process that has less waste, then that makes your shoe, it reduces the environmental impact a lot, right? And also, I mean, this is the other thing too, where when you start to talk about efficiency, I mean, this material here that's on the ground, right? That's the sort of the cutting waste from manufacturing. Guess who pays for that? You do. If you're the customer at a factory, when the material is cut, they charge you for all of the material. So even the material around the edge that they didn't use, you still have to pay for, because that's the yield of your design. Now, if your design was all, say, rectangles, right? If your design was just all squares, then you could literally go and you could cut that roll of material to a 100% efficiency. Well, shoe parts are all different crazy shapes, so you're never going to be able to cut efficiently. But some footwear materials are easy to recycle, some are difficult. Sometimes you can form the material without any waste, right? Depending on the choices you make. Okay. All right. So there's a lot of questions that I've gotten because we've done a few of these already, and one of the questions that I get um, is the cost of sustainability, right? How much does it really cost per pair? And the answer is it might actually save you money if you look at it from an efficiency perspective, right? The less waste is the less material that you have to buy that doesn't make it into the shoe. Or, if you are looking at other efficient processes like this particular shoe here is made by the knitting process. That process is very low waste. So just by the factor of the design, you've actually made the shoe less expensive, right? Um, Therefore, you more value to your customers. So sustainability didn't actually cost you anything. Um, this is another great question: is what about product end of life? Right? What happens? Right? Does it end up like this? Right? Or can you disassemble it? Or even if you can't disassemble it, at least if you're thinking ahead of time about what's going into it, right? There are things you can do to change sort of the end of life situation. Hey, one of the main things for product end of life is just to put it off, right? So if you make the sole rubber a little bit thicker, or use a slightly more durable material, or use a material that's washable, right? Then that means that the shoe can just live longer, right? And of course, the big brands, they don't want to hear that, right? They just want you to go buy another pair. And of course, hey, as designers and shoemakers, we want that too, because we are trying to push the limits forward. We want to make the next new thing. There's a balance. There's a balance. And actually, I want to show you. I want to show you folks. Um, this is something that I've worked hard to try to visualize and help people understand how sustainable you need to be. And here's kind of the chart here. So if you look at this chart here, let me turn myself off over here. If you look at this chart, you can see a water bottle, right? And how long does that water bottle live? Really? One day, right? One day. Okay. So your effort to make it sustainable, recyclable should be maximum, high, right? Now, if you think about a bean boot, and I say 10 years down here for a bean boot, but I know this kind of bean boot actually can last 30 years, right? Can last a long time if taken care of, right? So if your product life is way out here at 10 or 15 years, then you know what? You can make some compromise on sustainability because you're already doing the work, right? If you've made your shoe last longer, then you've made, that bean boot could be worth three or four other, would say conventional or other style of boots, right? So if you can make it last 10 years, you've just cut the amount that goes in the landfill by 4, maybe even 10, right? If you look at some flimsy products, even a pair of footwear that doesn't last that long, well, okay. Now, so that's kind of the effort curve by lifespan. Now, here's another challenge, and it's a same chart but different axes. And in this chart, we can show you, look at this pair of house slippers, right? And in the performance and safety requirement for a slipper, right? What is it? About this is not much. It's supposed to A, keep your feet warm, B, probably be washable, and C, be a little bit slip resistance, right? But if it slips off your foot, no one's getting hurt, right? Now, if you go look at this fancy snowboard boot over here, this thing, you bet your life on it, right? its performance requirements are sky high. So, and this is something I explain to my clients is that, if somebody's going to get hurt, right, because of the performance of your product, then that's not where you're going to use a sustainable material. I mean, you know, I know, the world is halfway on fire, but no one's going to sue you if Maui burns. They will sue you if they fall off a mountain and they get hurt because the snowboard boot broke, right? So that's the perverse, logic of the whole thing. But it literally, so that you just, this is where, to come up with a workable sustainability policy for your own brand, right? You have to think about these things because we're trying to improve the environment to make people's lives better, but also if you do something in your product and it doesn't meet the safety requirements for it, no one's going to care whether you made it sustainable or not. You're still going to be in trouble. So really, really be careful about that. But that said, hey, okay, this is kind of fast forward to the very last slide of the whole presentation, right? Okay, so what if you are making a boot like this, right, that has really high performance criteria, right? And maybe you can't use a recycled material. There's always, hey, listen, there's always something, right? There's always something. But say your options are limited. So what can you do? Hey, the answer, go plant trees, right? I mean, I worked with a company that made a lot of wakeboarding equipment, really high performance criteria. So where did we focus our efforts on sustainability? Hey, some of them, there were some materials that had good sustainable options, but other things were the packaging. Limit the packaging. The other thing we did is we went and did trash pickup at our local lagoon where people did water sports. So not directly into the product, but still as a company, you can do something. Uh, the last chart, I know charts are boring. Are these charts boring? Are they okay? It makes sense to you, Mike? Okay. Okay, here's another one. And this is really, you know, from a moral perspective, right? If you're making Crocs and your product volume is millions, then you should feel the weight, right, on your shoulders to do something, right? Because how many million pounds of EVA are created in Crocs every year? I don't know, a couple, right? They probably sell 10 million Crocs a year, right? So what's that? 2 million pounds of foam rubber. So they really should do something. Now, Balenciaga over here, how many of these $6,000, sock with EVA on it do they sell? You know, I don't know, a couple hundred, maybe 1,000. Okay, maybe 2,000. Who knows? So it's not really going to make a difference if they do a good job or not. Now Crocs, on the other hand, it really, if you're doing millions of pairs, then it really is on you to take advantage and do something. And this is where it gets a little bit strange because whereas Crocs has all that EVA that they consume to make that product, that they have to put a lot of effort and they actually have a high budget. Even though the individual budget for the product is not very high, collectively, if they were to make a really beautiful, somehow sustainable EVA, which I have to look and see what they're doing. I'm sure they're doing something. Versus Balenciaga, where they have all the money in the world, but they're not making that many. So is it really going to be that useful? Good question. Good question. Okay. So this is a little bit about um, you know, how and why you should respond, right, to make your shoe more or less sustainable. Now, here's the other thing. We're going to back up to corporate goals, and this is like sort of thinking about why you should be doing it, right? Because not every company, and we'll talk about this. Not every company needs to make shoes that look like this, right? That need to look like super crunchy, for lack of a better word, granola style shoe, right? That's not everybody's deal, So so when you look at, like, I know Michael, you're working on a soccer shoe, right? So for your brand image, sustainability is, it could be subsidiary, but when people are thinking soccer, they're not thinking sustainable. I mean, of course, yes, we are, but for example, if you were making hiking boots or some other outdoor product, then hey, yeah, if you're in that market segment, then there's going to be a push to do sustainable because you're outdoors, right? Now, and also if you're in the outdoor segment, for example, you look around and say, okay, who's in my market, right? Patagonia, Timberland, and those companies really do a lot of sustainability things. So they know their customers are looking for that. So if your competitors are doing more sustainable push and they're marketing it, then okay, you've got to do it. So that's a little bit too, where depending on what category you're in, because your end users might be demanding it, right? Folks that buy Tevas or Chaco sandals, right? They love the outdoors. They're committed to it. It's important to those end users that you do something, right? Soccer players, maybe not so much. So you don't have to. The reason I mentioned those examples in particular is that you should still do something, but it doesn't have to be central to your mission of your company. So look at Allbirds, and this is kind of an interesting, like, it may be kind of a mismatch, and that's a company that's failed spectacularly and very successfully failed, right? They're a multi-billion-dollar company. The share price has gone down, and they're not sure what to do. And their focus has been so much on sustainability, but their product market segment, the people they cater to, it's not such a, they might be putting too much effort into sustainable marketing in a casual product segment where the customer doesn't care. They're not getting the benefit of it, right? So Patagonia, when they market sustainability, their customers go crazy for it, right? Now I know Allbirds, there's two different sort of, they're chasing sort of two different segments. I mean, my dear mother-in-law is 82 years old and she loves her Allbirds. And then there's also the guy that lives in California that drives a Tesla that wears Allbirds. So who's your target? Anyways, but that's a real challenge. Like, they put all of their effort into sustainability, but if the shoes don't look that great or it's not important to your customer, then you're wasting your time. I'm not saying they shouldn't do it, but if you put all of your effort into that and that's your main selling proposition, and when Allbirds came out, they were maybe a leader in that, and other big brands weren't pushing, but now other brands are. All right, so founders and managers, that's a great, Allbirds, that was their mission from the beginning, right? And they drove it, right? And then same thing, employees. And then, hey, if there's something specific to your product, right? I mentioned this wakeboard company. They had a lot of wood cores inside of the boards. So it was, that was a pretty sizable component, and that was, they were able to work with the supplier to say, okay, we're going to pick a wood that can grow efficiently in a plantation so that you're not taking land away from food production, or you're not destroying old growth forest, that it's a fast growing, easy to harvest, and it's essentially sustainable in its character. So again, when you're looking at what kind of product you're making and who you're selling it to, what your competitors are doing, that can sort of inform not necessarily what you have to do to make your shoe sustainable, but how you communicate it, right? So you might think, for example, like I said, Patagonia, awesome, right? Their users love green stuff. Think about if you're making licensed shoes for Harley Davidson, might not care, right? So yeah, you're doing it, but you might not. In fact, if Harley Davidson licensed footwear was all of a sudden super green and sustainable, their customers probably might not like that. They might be like, stick it up your nose, right? They don't care, right? But I mean, that's, I know that's sort of politics, but But just for example, they might. I mean, I don't know. I know a couple of Harley people, and they're okay with that stuff. But just for example, so that might be, hey, they don't want to hear that, right? They just want to go ride and have a good time. But that's okay, because there's nothing to say that you can't make all these sustainable choices. You're just not going to put it in their face, right? So they can still get the benefit of it without actually having to, wear a piece of granola on their feet, for lack of a better word. So, so this is kind of like the why I mean, we know why we need to do it, but to figure out a sustainability plan that's going to work with your brand, and that's where you can decide, because that gets back to that question: is, if I have to make the shoe a little bit more expensive, is it worth it? And your soccer customer might not care, right? So your sustainability message might be in the efficiency and cost saving, not necessarily. And of course, yeah, do material substitution, of course, but you might not put it on your box in big letters, right? Because and that's a little bit where, and I'm going to show you some photos here too, where, okay, here, this is sort of your sustainability to your brand image, right? If you're making, sleek, high fashion shoes, nobody's, you can make it all out of sustainable materials, but it better not look sustainable. It's supposed to look sleek and sexy, right? That's its job, right? So and this a little bit does get back to, what's your performance criteria for your shoe, right? Is it, this crazy, this shoe in particular, this Nike one, its performance criteria was to demonstrate all the cool things that Nike can do. And it looks it and it shows it, and that's cool. This shoe's job is to be sleek and sexy and tall and beautiful, and make women feel awesome about wearing it. And it's not about a sustainable message. But hey, that doesn't mean you can't put sustainable componentry inside the shoe. And that's kind of where I say it's a little bit of a inside out sustainability, right? So you can look at all the internal componentry, and it doesn't have to have regrind outsole that people can see, but you can still make choices on the inside of the shoe. Okay, I've talked a lot. Does anybody here have any questions? I see Anthony, Blair Anthony. Do you have any questions? You're welcome to type into the chat where you're from, and if you have any particular question. If not, I've got some questions that came in over the internet. So let's see. Okay, this is a great question. So I said before, right now there's no rules. Right now there's no demand or requirement. Yes, there's some chemical requirement that we all follow already, but they're working on rules. So there's an organization called the FDRA in the United States that it's the Footwear Trade Association, and what they're doing is they're trying to create internal rules for the industry, so that if we can recommend rules as shoemakers, then the government won't tell us what to do, right? If we can work with them to design some rules that are workable. Okay, Andrea, I'm listed in a supplier list for materials, and where do they come from? Yeah, okay, good question. So yeah, with the course, there's a big long list. There's 35 material vendors that we've checked out and listed, and then there's another 200 that we know have sustainable options, but we haven't necessarily poured over them. So that big list is a spreadsheet that comes with the course, and it's just an Excel document, but it's got the web address, and it tells what kind of stuff they make, and it has some contact information, so you can get a hold of it. But that's in the course, and actually in the course we go over a few examples of different suppliers, but if I started reading that list, it would take like 9 hours, so let's not do that. Okay, so the question is they're asking, is there a minimum percentage of sustainable materials that are required? So what they're sort of working on right now is 20% of the shoe by weight would have either recycled or other sustainable aspect to it. Now, this is where they get to negotiate, what does that mean, right? Who knows, right? So they're definitely working on that. And actually, in the course, I'll show you right now. Actually, I'm gonna flip over to another camera here. Okay, it's a little bit of a junk show, but let me so this is a shoe that we talk about. This thing is called the Nike Cosmo. If you turn your to speaker view, maybe you can make it bigger and you can see it. Let me turn the light up a little bit. Maybe you can see it better. Okay. So this is called the Nike Cosmo, and this shoe has 20% by weight um, environmentally sensitive or ecologically responsible material. So when you look at this thing, you can see they've got some regrind in the midsole. I don't know if you can see those tiny little spots. So they've got some ground up rubber mixed in with the EVA, and then also they've got some. It looks like pulverized EVA that's used in the backing foam inside the shoe. So when you sort of look at the shoe, you can start to see this recycled, chopped up carpet foam looking stuff. Um, you know, Again, this is a pretty wild looking shoe, so it's a little bit hard to see like why and how and what they did. Um, here's another shoe where it's pretty obvious. You can see what they did. They put all that chopped up stuff in big chunks, and then if you look inside the shoe, they have an entire midsole that's made out of recycled foam. And actually, that foam, you can sort of see it here is what that looks like. They actually made the footbed out of it. And interestingly, and I'm not sure why, if they just wanted to show that it had recycled foam in it, they didn't put a fabric skin on top of the footbed. So you're standing on raw foam, which I guess, if you wear socks, then it's not a big deal. But yeah, so these are some sort of interesting shoes that they made. This one, the upper is all knit, and the knit fabric they use to make this has recycled fiber. And I know some of those fibers are like ocean plastic, right? They harvest the water bottles and then they pulverize it and remelt it um, to make fabric. So, and that's one of the. Sorry about that. No, I can't hear that. Okay, if you have a question, go ahead and type it in. Okay, let's see. What is the sustainability project review? I think I need that. Okay, all right. Oh yeah, a great question. So I'm not sure where that noise is coming from. I'm gonna just that might be you, Mike. Oh, maybe not. Okay, that was you, Mike. Okay, no worries. Okay, so this let's cruise back over to the website quickly, and I'll show you this for. I know Andrea, you have a brand you're working with, so let's go over here. So if you go over here to consulting packages, one of the things that we offer now is a sustainability review. So if you come over here to packages, you can see we have a sustainable project review right now. We do it, basically we get together, you send me a shoe, or we look at your shoe, we look at what your brand is doing, and we just sort of evaluate what you're doing. So this is kind of, if you're not sure where to start or what's appropriate for your brand or what materials can I do, what options. So this is just a quick way for you to just sort of get a feel for where you're at. And that's something I do for folks. So it's just like buying a book or a course. Just add it to your cart, and then we schedule a time to look at your item. So there's a brand that we're working with, and actually let's go visit their website here, and I'll just introduce you to this brand, and make sure I get them spelled right here. So this brand is a sleek women's sandal, And it's kind of high tone, beautiful, sleek stuff, right? And you wouldn't think that sustainability was key to their message. It's not. Their goal is to make beautiful shoes that you can wear, right? But it is important to the owners, so they really put a commitment into, said, "Hey Wade, how can we improve this?" So, this is a simple product relatively, but when you start thinking about, okay, it still has a rubber bottom that has some recycled component. The lasting board inside to give it stiffness, that's recycled. The foam that they stand on has recycled, just like this Nike shoe. You don't see it, so it can have recycled content, and it doesn't have to look recycled. So again, this is a shoe that's pretty simple. There's not many components to it. It's pretty sleek, and they're doing what they can, but they're not put it in a, it's actually a great sales pitch when they go to sell it to their retailers, but their end user doesn't have to sweat it, right? They just want a sleek, beautiful looking shoe, and they've kind of slid that sustainability into it. So they've done a really nice job with that one. And some of the, I mean, yeah, there's some componentry that they had to spend a little bit more money on. Not much, not even 10% overall for the whole shoe. And actually they went that route. I said sometimes it's all about your packaging. So they have a, you know, you know, this is another thing too, where you spend all this time to design and develop and make this piece of footwear, and then you have to ship it. And they have shoes that are made in Brazil, some that are made in China. That's a long way for a piece of footwear to travel, and it's easy for footwear to get damaged. So you have to be careful about your packaging. So they were able to use sort of lighter weight cardboard structure inside the box, but the sandals themselves come in a bag it's made out of cornstarch. So basically, you can just, after the store, because usually these are already on display, they take that bag, which the customer never sees, and they just can recycle it, or I think it just dissolves. So if you get it wet, it lasts for like 3 days and then it's gone. But it's really cool. It costs them a little bit more money for that, but it's not plastic. Okay. Um, that just reminded me of something else I wanted to show you. Um, oh, oh, hello. Hey, go ahead and if you have a question, if you want to type it into the chat, you may. Um, Andrea, no, speaks Mandarin, I think. I'm gonna put you on mute there, sweetheart. Okay. All right. Uh, what else, folks? So that's a case where oh, that's what I want to show you, folks. Was let's see here. Um, we're talking about EDA. We're talking about this. Let's see here. Let's see. I lost my mind for a second. Okay. Let's go back here. So this is something that yes, that sandal is pretty simple. Oh, what else is covered in the course? Okay. So what we cover in the course, and actually this is what we're getting to, is you guys really are here to figure out how to design your shoe for sustainability, right? So we're gonna tease that a little bit. So when you go to sit down and design a shoe, and this is the part where, I said everybody's involved, from the owner to the manager to the team member, right? And this is the part where, as a designer, we have to work to seriously think about it. And this is where we spend a lot in the course, is more time on these sort of procedure pieces, right? So what does design simplification look like? Um, what is it? What is a mono material design? Actually, I'll give you a hint. A crock is mono material, right? One material, right? And then designing your product for efficiency. And I want to show you an example. And this is really for designers to think about, is right here. Is look at these two shoes, right? These are pretty wild, right? There's a lot going on in these crazy shoes. However, um, this orange one actually is way more difficult, way more wasteful, way more complicated to make. Even though they both look crazy, the techniques they've used to make this other brightly colored one are actually a lot better, right? So, and it's like, wait, how can that be? Well, number one, this orange one, all these components are cut. So whenever you're cutting, you have waste. And you see all these different little pieces and materials and windows and these strange shaped pieces. So this is kind of a low yield piece, right? When you go to fit those pieces together, there's a lot of material waste, right? And the fact that there's so many with different materials and processes, you know. And if you look at this one, it looks really complicated, but once you start looking at it, you say, wait a minute, all this color on the upper here, this is all made by sublimation printing. So this is one piece of fabric that has print. And then you look at this woven label, same thing. This logo piece on the ankle here is made by a weaving process. So it's threads that come in and there's no waste in that process. And then you look at the outsole and you realize, oh, it's crystal rubber and they've made these other colors just by little dabs of paint. Paint's not the best, but it's really efficient. And then this little thing on the heel, this crazy lenticular plastic thing, that again is a plastic injection with a little printing process on it. So, you know, even though it looks hyper complicated, actually not too bad. I mean, that's the kind of, and they didn't set out to make it that way, but that's kind of what they got to, right? So that I found, you know, I found that quite an interesting example of how you can still, if you have the right tools and you have the right mindset, and that's kind of what's in the rest of the course, is looking at these different materials and processes to figure out how to make a more sustainable design, but not make it look boring, right? Because you know that's the other part, and it comes back to this chart right here. High volume versus, you know, high volume versus low volume, right? Right? If you design a perfectly sustainable shoe and it's ugly and nobody buys it, then you've accomplished absolutely nothing, right? So that's where, if you're really going to have an impact, you've got to make sure that your shoe is still, it has to function, right? It has to be the right price, it has to look right, it has to be durable. So all those basic rules that you need to succeed, you have to do those and be sustainable. I know that's the challenge, right? Because if you're Allbirds and you make a hyper sustainable shoe, and I'll show you their new, you know, I'm a little bit picking on them, and it's partially because a friend of mine he's always fascinated by the business side of it, how they were so successful and they raised a lot of money, and actually through the history of the company they haven't not actually made a profit through the history of the company. Oops. Okay. So here, this is their new moonshot net zero carbon shoe, right? And does it look like anything that you would wear, right? I don't know anyone that would wear something that looks like that. So, I mean, yeah, it's a demonstration of the technology and the procedure, but if you sell 3 pairs of them, you're not providing any sustainable effort, right? So this is where, you know, it's cool, you know, but you know, I'd wear it. Okay, Lucy, I'm with you. You know, when I first saw it, I thought, hey, if that's waterproof, I'm going to shovel snow in there. Looks comfortable, but you know, versus here, this is Soleil C, right? That sandal I showed you, and how, you know, they've gone, and even though it doesn't look particularly sustainable, recycled lasting board, natural foam, their sublimation printing process is a little bit better. They have recycled rubber compound. their upper is vegan material. Yes, I mean this is always the trick: is what's better, man-made synthetic material or leather? A little bit of it depends on what your priority is for you, right? If you're concerned about water and carbon emission, then leather not a great choice, right? Because of what it takes to grow the animal and all that other energy that goes into that. Versus, man-made material doesn't have as many, sorry, material requirement or input, but your chance for environmental contamination is a little bit higher. Not that cows are not great for the environment either, actually. So yeah, but there are ways to use all of those materials responsibly, right? Whether it's leather or man-made, and we talk about that in the course. But one of the main things you sort of have to look at and is is not everything has a great sustainable option. And this is a little bit why I like to bring up Allbirds, because they may have some cases gone too far, right? If you're not making a shoe that's beautiful and comfortable that people want to wear, it doesn't matter what you did, right? Um, Versus, this is kind of a cool, this is kind of a cool sneaker product that these guys made, and it looks relatively conventional, but everything about it has some sort of sustainable twist, right? So, interesting shoe. So yeah, this is actually the back half of the course. We review a bunch of different brands, and we sort of do a little case study about what they're doing. The big brands, Nike, really, Adidas, they put a lot into it. They have some good technology. They're not, you know, let's make no mistake, they're a commercial company, so they're being really careful about what they do. But they actually have the money and they can invest, you know, 10 or 20 people on it, versus a small company can invest exactly nobody, right? So it's and that's why I like to look at these bigger companies and at least so you can see what they're doing. And that's what we cover that in the course. And a lot of these, companies, they all have different solutions. They're all doing different things. Back to what's important for your brand, I want to show you sort of um, the end of life study. Let's go back to that for a second here. I'm gonna go find it quickly here. Um, let's see here. So when you get to the end of life, what can you do? So this is Chaco. They actually have a van that drives around to river sites where people are using their shoes, and they offer people shoe repairs. That's just one of the things that they do, right? And they also have a whole repair service, right? And they, depending on what what breaks, but also this particular sandal, the design of it is unique, and the design of it is such a way that it's easy to take the bottom off and put a new one on, right? I mean, think about these shoes right here. Which one of these do you think you could repair, right? I mean, granted, this one will be out of fashion in about 30 seconds, but this work boot, that sole is designed to be shaved off and replaced. This Chaco sandal, same thing. The line that divides the sole from the midsole is flat, so you can heat it up and peel it off, right? Okay, question: how long is the introductory price? Uh, you know, couple weeks. I mean, so we have the course right now. It's $99. It's 3 hours, and it's going through all the subject. This course is part of the all access pass. And if you're an all access pass holder, I don't see any pass holders in the audience today. If you are a pass holder, then it's already in your profile, and you can get to this course. But actually, that's the other thing too. If you're interested in the all access pass, I know Michael, you've been looking at it, right? I know you have some of the books. The all access pass, it comes with the ebooks, but for the rest of the month, and I think there's a code in you might have got an email about it already, where there's the books, you get the books for free, right? The paper book. So if you're interested in that, um, but the introductory price for the course, yeah, it's going to be a couple weeks, and then yeah. What do you think? Okay, so hey, actually, before we, I know okay, I'm giving you folks a few minute warning, because if you have a question in your mind and you're not sure if you want to ask it, now's the time. But whilst you're thinking about your question, I want to just go over here to the live events, and we've got two more that are on the books, and these are ones. I mean, I'm always excited to talk about shoes, but what we've got coming up is in September 7th, we have tooling and development cost. So when you look at a fancy shoe like this, how much did this componentry cost to make, right? So we're gonna talk about that, because between midsole molds and outsole molds and footbeds and all these other things and logo tools, it all adds up. You know, some tools are really expensive, some are really inexpensive. Some expensive tools can save you money in the end, right? If it's the right kind of equipment. So that's pretty important. And then for brands that are starting out, of course, you know, what's this all going to cost, right? And then the next on September 14th is logo strategy, and this is we're actually working on a new book specifically about how to design shoes. I know everything we do is about shoe design, but really kind of a cookbook for how to design shoes. And one of the questions we get a lot is why does that Nike shoe have 9 logos on it, and why does the EZ have no logos on it? Well, we'll talk about that. So, and that's basically logo strategy. Is kind of, I know it sounds kind of a weird topic, but when you start to think about designing a shoe, why is there a logo there? How much did it cost? What is it trying to do? What's its purpose? Do you need it? You know. So we're going to talk about logos, and that's a real sort of design communication question. So it's a lot of fun, actually. And that course, that's going to be part of a bigger course that we're doing on shoe design, and we're writing a new book. And don't ask me when it's going to be ready. I don't know. Okay. I've enjoyed our conversation. If you would really like to hear me talk about sustainability for 3 more hours, then get over to the website, and you can check out the course. Like I said, it's $99 for the next couple weeks, and again, we go into all the gory details. It comes with a downloadable list of the material vendors. Okay. Well, folks, now's your chance for a last question.